might give that away. So for the A5 and S5 Sportback drive, we honestly weren't sure that we were going to get the cars here in time, fresh off the boat, and we were lucky that they did. So great news for all of us, and hopefully for you tomorrow when you get to have the drive. Welcome to Seattle. Fantastic place to be. You might notice that the line drawings and the art illustrations on the walls, they are done by a gentleman by the name of Monsieur Cubet from Paris. And he basically, if you'll notice, there's a beginning to the line and an end to the line. And we found that to be very interesting and tying in very nicely with our Sportback, because we're very proud, and you'll hear a little bit more about this in more detail with the line of our Sportback that you've gotten to know from our beloved A and S7, RS7, and now today as well in our what we call the B segment on our B9 architecture. So very pleased that you guys can be here. I think it's a fabulous car. I think you're going to have a fantastic time, and hope you enjoy some of the artwork on the walls as well. I believe there will be a little bit of a surprise at some point, maybe at a later date and time that you'll get from that perspective. We have with us here today our Director of Product Planning, Barry Hoch. For those of you that have not met him, he does not grace us with his presence very often because he's a very busy man doing his day job. But he has an incredible knowledge about cars in general, but also obviously about our cars. And a great guy to have a conversation with about all kinds of cars, frankly, but certainly about the one that we're here to talk about today. And Frank Lamberti, our head of design for these cars for the entire A9 model line. I would also like to call out real quick my team that's standing in the back. Michelle, who puts all of our press events together. She makes sure that you get here in one piece, make sure that you have a ride from the airport, make sure you eat, make sure you have a room, and make sure that you have a nice event that you can be a part of, frankly. So I would appreciate a nice little round of applause, please. Does a lot of work. You're going to hear a little bit about our launch timings, and you'll hear about a lot of the work that she's been doing. And Amelia and Amanda, there's Amanda, I didn't see her earlier, who you might know, who have largely put this entire thing together in terms of all of the presentation work and everything else. So thanks to my team and everyone else here. Really, really appreciate all the work, and our partners at Gale Weiss. Without further ado, Mr. Barry Hoch, Director of Product Planning, take you through the wonderful cars that we're here to talk about. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So, hot on the heels of the A4 and the Q7 launch, 2017 marks the beginning of the largest product cadence we've ever had at Audi over the next 3 years. And in fact, we will launch 14 new or significantly improved models within the next 18 months. What this leads us to is the youngest lineup amongst our main competitors within the segment. And the U.S. market for the Audi brand has been very strong. We've doubled sales in the past 5 years. We've done that organically. Some of our competitors, they end up buying their market share. In fact, our incentive spend is anywhere from 25 to 35% less than our nearest competition. At the same time, we've increased our product quality and our network quality. In fact, Consumer Reports for the past 2 years has given us the most recommended brand from a J.D. Power dealer perspective. Customer Service Index 2 years, number 2, top 3 of the last 4 years, and then of course with the Audi brand itself being number 2 most considered brand in the luxury segment. So overall business is strong as well. And I think just a quick reminder of the performance pyramid of Audi. At the core, the foundation is your A models, your S line, and then with the Audi Sport being the focused track testing cars up at the top with your S models in between. And I think the S models is something that Mark mentioned here as well with the S5 Sportback. This is definitely a formula that's being duplicated by our competition. What you see is, of course, with S-Line that had the style, and this car brings the style and the substance to the car with real hardware. We're talking sport differentials, 6-piston brakes, exclusive S Sport seats, top speeds raised to 155 miles an hour. So this is really this perfect balance of performance and styling in between our hardcore Audi Sport models and the A and the S-Line models. And then within the Audi model lineup itself, the Sportback has always been a very special and exclusive car for us. When we brought in the A7 into the C segment for Audi, we ended up tripling sales, so that's a combination of A7 and A6 together. Those buyers themselves are fantastic for the Audi brand. They purchase for design, performance, and functionality. And I think what they allow us to do is conquest out into a wider customer base with that styling. And I think what's interesting for us is one of the key learning points we had from these customers was that they didn't want to sacrifice functionality to have the design. So in fact, a key lesson for us was when we launched A7, it was a 4-seater, and we had a 5-seater as an option. We later made that car strictly 5-seater with the A7, and that was a key learning point that we brought forward to the A5 as well. And I think that's something that may get missed on some of our competition up in the A7 section. So with this A5 Sportback, this really is a perfect balance of the design and functionality, and I think we'll talk more about those a little bit later. I know Frank will go into design, and I'll try to speak on the functionality aspect of it as well. This to me is one of the key aspects of the entire A5 Sportback. And when we talked about learnings from A7, we talked about moving to a 5-seater only, and this really would have been extremely easy or significantly easier just to put a backpack on the coupe here. Don't change a thing on it, just put a backpack here. And in fact, learning and knowing what we did about A7, it was really important that we actually took the wheelbase from the A4 to give this car stretch, to give us additional rear seat room and additional cargo space that you don't find. And I think when you start to look at our competition and how the competition has changed or not changed, this is one significant aspect that really separates us from the competition here, which is the rear seat legroom. Additionally, we changed the roof line slightly to not only give you additional legroom in the rear seat, but also in the first row as well. So this combination here again speaks to the functionality of this car and what separates us from the competition. And with that, going from the longer wheelbase from the A4 against an A5 coupe, the Sportback gives us almost 22 cubic feet of cargo space with the seats up and 35 with the seats down. So that's enough for a mountain bike, a suitcase, or both. And based on the design, and I think some of the design that we talked about here is a lot of it has to do with both styling, but there is some functionality involved here as well. And one of the things you'll notice, of course, is a very beautiful styling element is the frameless doors or the frameless windows that you have here on the car. But an interesting aspect of it is the shoulder-mounted mirrors. So moving the mirrors away from the A-pillar here also gives a very sporty design. But the functionality is, of course, is from an aeroacoustic perspective. You move a lot of the noise that occurs with those side mirrors out away from the driver, giving the car a quieter interior. But from a design and from a usability standpoint, you'll actually find your shorter customers, if you have a mirror mounted on the A-pillar here, actually have a hard time navigating left turns at slow speeds because this mirror is mounted right up against here. But with the shoulder-mounted mirror, you move it out and you have some glass in between, allowing the shorter driver to look between the mirror and the A-pillar to have a better field of view. Now, with the A5 being our sporty car within sort of the B9 family, of course the interior is driver focused. It's very clean, it's very light with the elements that are used here. But there's also a lot of functionality that I think goes missed from day to day. What you'll find here is simple things like a place to put your keys. You'll find bottle holders in the doors. And what's interesting here as well is this is a storage for the glove box. In place of the glove box, you can put the owner's manual to the left of the steering wheel as well. And again, this goes back to this need for additional functionality, not wanting to sacrifice the functionality of the car when learning from the A7, moving into the A5. Additionally, the 3-zone climate control and center diffuser vent. So this was one that actually is functional. The center diffuser vent, you actually have haptic buttons on the 3-zone climate control. And I think what's interesting here is just looking at the level of detail. If you notice, if you zoom in on the actual numbers themselves, you'll find traditional LCDs kind of use the same segments for each of the figures and each of the numbers. And I think with this car, you'll notice is we actually have additional sort of like half or hash portions of this LCD display to give you very rounded, very crisp, clear numbers. And of course, the functionality themselves, the haptic feedback, that reminds us of a sort of a Nest thermostat, if you will. Infotainment, if you're familiar with our current Audis, you'll realize this is no different. You have virtual cockpit running at a very fluid 60 frames a second. You have an 8.3-inch MMI display, and you combine that with a head-up display, you have a very driver-focused interior with 3 screens to choose from to display your information. So for example, you could have audio on the center stack, you could have your map in this expanded mode using Google Earth on the driver display, and then your head-up display is strictly for your actual directions and your speed itself. But additionally, the Bang & Olufsen sound system, 3D sound, this again speaks to the authenticity of it. We actually put additional speakers at the top of the A-pillar, so it's not just merely a sound map. There actually is additional speakers that give you this 3D scape inside the vehicle. Of course, Audi Connect is available and bundled with our navigation system. I actually use this on the way here, for example, if your boss needed a file from your computer, you're on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere or Seattle, and you need to send something from your computer, hypothetically, this is something that really comes in handy and is one of those great features that is always going on in the background with this car. Also nice for passengers and kids when streaming as well. Advanced driver assistance systems. I think today we get into a position where we get into a lot of box checking. It's blind spot monitoring, it's all-wheel drive, it's adaptive cruise control, traffic jam assist, what speed, lane assist, this and that. And what I'd really like to do for a second is dive into some of the details that I think go missed here. And when you have a company such as Audi work on something like Audi Side Assist, this is something that's been out since 2007 from us. The devil really is in the details, the execution in here. This is a system you can tell after using that's been honed for use on the Autobahn. We use very long range, essentially systems, 70 meters behind the vehicle. The benefit here is this gives you a very early warning when a car is approaching your blind spot, whereas I think some of our competition will warn you when the car is in your blind spot. So if you can imagine, 80 miles an hour on the Autobahn, there's a car in the left lane coming up behind you very quickly. That car will be on top of you before you know it. And it's with these systems and tuning the way that we do that gives you that nice early warning of when these cars are going to be there. Vehicle exit assist, this is a feature that's bolted onto side assist. And of course, this is something that's exclusive to us. And this keeps the Audi side assist radar powered for when the vehicle is off up to 2 minutes. And what that does is the driver, the passenger's rear seat, it monitors the traffic, for example, if you're parallel parking, so that you don't open the door into an oncoming car, a cyclist, presuming they have a metal bicycle, and that will detect that as well. Carbon fiber bikes, you're out of luck. But with that, I think that gives us an additional advantage here as well in terms of the added features that come with the capabilities that come with this Audi side assist sensor.
You can pick up the bikes with radar pretty
metal
consistently.
bikes, yeah, alloy bikes. Yeah. So this is collision avoidance is another feature that I think goes missed as well. This is when combined with the adaptive cruise control. This gives you a proper steering angle and torque to prevent overcorrecting or undercorrecting to get around the obstacle without over or undershooting the obstacle. So with the 2-liter, the A5, of course, your engine is, your default engine is the 2-liter TFSI Quattro. This is the all-new inline-4 that's powered everything from our all-new A4 all the way up to Q7 with ease. Has a tremendous amount of torque, 273 pound-feet, and it's mated to a very quick shifting, all-new 7-speed S-tronic transmission. So this car gives, when mated to this engine, gives you very quick shifts, very efficient, but then at 5.7 seconds, also very quick car. The chassis is familiar to those on the B9 A4. It's a 5-link front and rear setup. The interesting thing here is we have even the default non-sport suspension on A5 sits 23 millimeters lower than A4. So this is essentially, the other way to look at it is S4 ride height is A5 ride height is the other way to look at that as well. We do have available sport suspension. That doesn't lower the car any further, but it does give you thicker anti-roll bars, stiffer springs and dampers. And then on the opposite end of it, you have an optional adaptive suspension, which gives you a nice balance of additional comfort or additional sport, depending on your choosing. Quattro all-wheel drive is standard on every A5 Sportback. This is the self-locking center differential, so mechanical base, 40-60 static split, has the ability to move up to 70% at the front or 85% at the rear mechanically, and that is a system that's standard on the Sportback. which brings us to the S5 Sportback. So building on A5 Sportback and what we just mentioned, these are some of the additional features that come into play when we talk about S5. So you have the inherent S attributes shown here. You have an additional rear lip spoiler, you have an S model specific diffuser, and of course the expected alloy optic mirrors and the quad exhaust pipes that come with that. And additionally, you have this very specific S model intake design, which is based on the S line, but it gives you additional alloy elements here, which our designers say resembles a hammerhead shark when looking at the air intake. Frank, that was for you. Thanks. So moving into the Sportback interior for the S5, so very driver focused on A5, and we amplified it even further with S5. We have our specific S sport seats, which are available, come standard in leather Alcantara, also available in full leather, flat bottom steering wheel, additional optional carbon atlas inlay. And then when you combine it with virtual cockpit, you get an S mode as well with a center mounted tachometer and speedometer. Which the S5 is of course powered by the all-new 3.0 TFSI. This is the engine that's powering the S4, the SQ5 as well. It's a twin scroll single turbo mounted hot side in. It weighs only 379 pounds, which is 31 pounds less than the outgoing supercharged engine. The important thing here to remember is that it is a very robust engine, albeit lightweight. So it's a closed deck design, you have a forged crank, hardened valves, and this is something that I think is really cool here is this active exhaust valve. So if you pop your head underneath the S5, you'll actually notice there's some solenoids that mounted. On the driver's side, it is after the last silencer and before the pipes, and then there's another one mounted on the passenger side. And it has the ability, based on acoustics or via engine load or warm up, to shut down 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the quad exhaust pipes on the back of the S5. And that's something that, and again, I think it's also worth stressing is that is noise that's coming out of the exhaust, not being piped into the 3D speakers. Although, if I think about it, 3D speakers with exhaust sound might sound rather interesting up at the A-pillar, but it won't make sense, so we don't do that. So that, again, is something that when you combine this very powerful engine and you compare it to the supercharged outgoing engine, what you'll find here is you have a massive dollop of torque down low, 1370 RPM for 369 pound-feet. And when you think about what that hit does, also then it goes to this tabletop of torque all the way up to 4,500 RPM. You combine that, what you end up with as a result is class-leading 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. And when you take that torque down low and the ability to smoothly apply that to the road, really this ZF8 gearbox is the perfect match for this car. It gives you a very wide, sporty ratios down low with fuel economy in some of the higher, the super overdrive gears. But the interesting thing here is if you have the car in ESC Sport and you have the transmission in S or dynamic mode, brake torque will put you into our aggressive launch program or shift program, and you'll be banging gears just like you would with a launch control dual clutch. So if you need a neck realignment, ESC Sport and dynamic mode Sport with the transmission, and then gas and brake at the same time will give you that fantastic acceleration run. Pardon me. On top of the hardware that we talk about with the S5 that already comes standard, the standard S suspension, we have the available S Sport package, and this really just elevates the performance to another level. So you have a sport adaptive suspension on top of the sport suspension. You have a Quattro Sport differential, which has been revised from the B8 generation. It's actually more compact, faster reacting. What this does is mechanically shuffles the power in the rear axle between the inside wheel and the outside wheel. Interesting to note here as well is a lot of people obviously put it into dynamic mode to give you that extra turn-in, that enhancement. But actually what you find is, what's interesting and most people miss is in comfort mode on the highway and at high speeds, for example, you would switch it into comfort mode during rain or snow because it helps balance the chassis when you're under braking. So that's something that'll help keep you from getting that wiggle with the car when you're under braking, because it'll help balance out the car a little bit. On top of S Sport package is the dynamic steering. We realize this isn't for everyone, so this is why this is an on-top feature, not just baked into the S Sport package. This gives you a variable ratio from 10.5 to 1 to 25 to 1 on this with this steering setup based on a variety of parameters. And the identifier for the S Sport package is the red brakes. So if you see an S5 with red painted calipers, you'll know that that car has the Sport Diff, the Sport Adaptive Suspension, and possibly the dynamic steering. And I think it's worth mentioning here that while the paint is what changes from the S Sport package, and now it goes from black to red, the hardware itself is quite substantial. I mean, we're talking fixed 6-piston calipers, 350 millimeter design. This is hardware that's normally reserved on competitions. They're upper echelon, sort of Audi Sport level hardware. And so I think that shows you this car stops as well as it goes with that. So bringing it all together, the A5 Sportback begins life at premium level, premium trim level. And premium in Audi speak is a sellable car. It's not, without leather, without a roof, tiny wheels, halogen headlights, no smartphone interface. This is a very well-equipped car. So you'll find features that are not standard on the competition, but again, helps further differentiate us from that. So you have things like standard smartphone interface, which is CarPlay and Android Auto. You have the xenon headlights. The LED turn signals in the rear are the dynamic design, so the swiping indicators are standard. Precinct City, which is our autonomous emergency braking. And that car with Quattro is $42,600, and I think it shows the value of that car compared to its competition is significantly more. S5 begins life at Premium Plus trim, so in addition to the S model equipment that we talked about, you also get standard quad beam LED headlights, the side assist system, and the leather Alcantara S Sport seats to begin at $54,400. And so with that, the A5 family and the A5 model lineup is complete in the U.S. market. You have both, again, to reminder, the A5 Sportback is Quattro only, 2OT or 3OT, and that rounds out the segment with an A5 S5 versions of both the coupe and the cabriolet, and also with the coupe being available with the 6-speed manual. And again, all with Quattro all-wheel drive. And so I think hopefully we've shown, at least from a functionality standpoint, we've taken what we've learned on A7, this proven formula that's been very successful for us, applied it to the B segment. We didn't just put a backpack on a coupe to give this car additional room. We know that the functionality of this car is just as important as the design to our customers, and also with the S5 Sportback being the upper echelon, that is our performance leader with class leading 0 to 60 4.5 seconds. So with that, I would like to introduce Frank Lamberti from Audi Design. And before Frank, you come up here, I have known Frank for 10 years. Frank is not your typical designer. I don't believe you own salmon pants. I don't believe you wear scarves all the time. And I met Frank 10 years ago when we were working on a project for the U.S. market to increase the likability, desirability of our cars in the U.S. market. And it was a different car, and I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but we were down in Florida, and this was about the same time we launched the R8. And the R8, Frank was very interested in. And he was asking a dealer who we were supposed to be talking to about SUVs, he kept asking about R8s. And I remember the dealer said, "You're asking an awful lot of questions about R8. What did you do, design it or something?" And Frank replied, "Yes." So Frank is an absolute treasure for Audi. I've loved working with him for the past 10 years, and I hope you have I expect you will have a very exciting presentation from him on the Sportback. So Frank, please, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, welcome. Barry, Mark, thank you very much that you invited me here to that cool city. I got a day off, more or less, to jump around. It's really a cool city, and I think we have a cool car. We will do, hopefully, a cool presentation. And we're talking about the Sportbacks. I'm not going to jump directly on the A5 Sportback. I really catch up to the A7. Because the A7 Sportback, this is how we call it in Europe, defined our little history of Sportbacks. And I want to explain how important this is and what it is and what it was. We started this project in 2005, which is 12 years ago. And for us, this was a new kind of concept, a new kind of type of car. Because we had sedans, we had Avants, blah, blah, blah. We even didn't have a coupe at that time. but we came up with this idea to do a 4-door coupe. And it was quite interesting because we started the C7 project, and we said we put on that platform, we put a 4-door coupe. But what does it mean? You have different types of coupes you can put on a 4-door. Like Mercedes or BMW, they have more kind of sedan coupes. We try to go a different way. And important on this car is this car gave the signature, the identity for all our upcoming Sportbacks. And I just want to point out a few little things. The roofline, the window graphics, and the rear end. But when we start a really new project from the beginning, normally our designers, they think basically. They're not just taking something, they really go back in history, and I got back in history as well, and I found something I want to show you. This year have been really original sketches of the designer who was starting thinking about basic things, about Audi, about proportions, about volumes. What we see here, a few little sketches, and this was not done by Photoshop, this was really done by hand. And what you see here is the principle of the Audi TT. What you see here is quite interesting. I don't know if you can guess what it is, but those are body sections. These are the sections which define the body side of the car. And here you see how you can treat the same volume with different lines and different architectures, and you get different outputs of light and shadow, whatever. This is what that shows. So these are kind of basic ideations about how you can treat a car. What we have here is the next step to think about the tradition of Audi. You can see here Audi unit single frame, how can we interpret that? This is a really ugly car. It's called Audi 60. I think you've never heard of that, but it's part of our tradition. Probably you can take out something about the body side. And now here it's getting interesting. Here we see a kind of a back of a Golf 1. And here we have something which I really pointed out because this is the moment. This is the moment when the designer said, okay, this is a kind of really cool, interesting car. It has a lot of Audi tradition. Does anybody know from you what this car is?
Like a first generation Passat.
Not so bad. But I will lift the secret. It's this car. Do you know this car? Okay. This is the Audi 100 Coupe S. Even there we got an S model, huh? Isn't it great? Take a look at this car. Isn't it beautiful? Nicely shaped, really good proportion, fantastic. And guys, I'm not talking about the lady car. This is one of the most beautiful cars from Audi at that time, back to the 70s, to mid of the 70s. You don't know that car, we have it, it's part of our tradition. And now please take a look in this area, because this was the area which really finally defined the identity of the A7 Sportback. And if you take a look at this side view sketch from this car, probably we can feel a little bit of that car. I will show you later how we translated it. At that point, I have to say, I was jealous. I was working on the A6 sedan, C7. Those guys did the A7 Sportback. Why is that car more sporty than the A6? A6 sedan is a beautiful car, no problem. It's a fantastic car, it's selling well, but they got something which I didn't get. They got a wider track. It's always good for design. They got a lower front hood. I don't know why. They got a lower roof. I know why. Because they got frameless doors. And that was the point where they could define this really beautiful, sleek car and light car. This is what we want to get with the A7. So that was a little bit the story, and this is a transformation again in the reality. And I think this car is really a successful car, and it really defined this kind of four-door coupe thing for Audi. Jumping one step later, there you see directly, these are rare, I haven't seen those pictures before. Rare pictures, they really did a comparison between the old Audi 100 Coupe S and in that case the S7. And you can really see, you can feel, there's a lot of transformation from the old times. And this is what makes Audi design as well. We take a look, what is our tradition, what do we have, what is important to keep, and how can we interpret it in a new car. If we go to the next step, it's important, I want to explain. Barry just said easily in the beginning, we did a lot of work on the Sportback. We extended the wheelbase. But why didn't we just come from the A4 sedan and do a Sportback out of it? I just will show you how that would work out. This is a rough sketch of the A4 sedan. And if you would have done a Sportback out of it, it would look like this. Not so bad in first glance. If we go in reality, this is our beautiful Audi A4 sedan. And now, this picture, please don't photograph. No, don't. It does not exist. I just prepared it for you guys, just to show what's going on. If I would bring in those ingredients of the Sportback, this nice roof line, the long, fast rear end, and also the signature, it's okay. But it's not sexy. And that is the point. If you want to do a really good Sportback as a photo coupe, you have to come from a coupe or you have to think from a coupe. Now I want to show you what we finally did. This is a rough silhouette of the A5 coupe. This is the Audi Wave character line of the Audi A5 coupe, and this is the quattro-based roof line of the coupe, which is definitely done as a GT, Gran Turismo, with a short, tight cabin and a little of a truck. And now, there's the moment. Now the magic line comes. So, what have we done? And there's a lot more. This is exactly what Barry said. I just go back one more. So, this is our coupe, and now, finally, what we did is, we just stretched the whole couple back. But we have to do it because we want to give 5 people proper seating space. So you have to lift the roof at the right place. But we have stretched the whole car. But we have to keep the signature of the A5 and the sportiness and the beauty of the A5. Again, once more. Here we go. And now, if you check in reality, this actually is our A5 coupe. Everybody knows this car, I guess, now. You as well. You have been in Palm Springs. I explained the design idea of this car. And actually, the job was now to give the A5 Sportback the right signature. And what will happen is like this. I explained before, we stretched everything, even the roof line, the magic roof line went backwards, and now we get in some trouble. Because the rear overhang, this one is the same like the coupe. But this went back way more, so we had also to deal with the rear end. So this rear end is a little bit more leaned back. The coupe has the tendency to get more forward, everything is more forward pushed, and this is going more back. This is the basic picture of this. And now I just want to jump quickly on this car, because this is the reality. This is our A5 Sportback. We have plenty of time this evening to take a look at the car. I just want to explain easily what we did. We have this fantastic, beautiful front end. This is this now famous power door. I think now this is fixed. This is coming from the A5 coupe. We have the fantastic grille, which is lower, wider. We have the sporty cushion, and we have the more higher sitting up headlights coming from the Gran Turismo A5 coupe. And actually, the whole car, the Sportback, is the same till here. So we have a carry-over front end between coupe, cabrio, and Sportback. But from here on, the Sportback party starts. And it starts because we moved the rear wheel 60 mm back, just to give the space to implement those four doors. And we had to deal differently with our fantastic character line. On the A5 coupe, everything is more compact, everything can be more dramatic. On this here, the rear fender is a little bit more stretched, it's not that dramatic, it's more elegant. And anyhow, the whole car is more elegant, for sure. You have a longer wheelbase, you have a longer car, but it still is sporty because it's coming from the A5 Coupe. When we take a look at those ingredients I talked about, the A7, we take a look at this fantastic roofline. This is really what makes a Sportback. It's not a sedan roofline, it's a coupe roofline. And what we implemented is really this kind of typical Audi arch, this element. This is coming from the A7, and this is what we give as a signature for the A5 Sportback as well, to have this kick up. And we nearly pronounced it strongly because we made it quite strong, and there's a lot of aluminum. If you take a look at this beautiful line which is running till here, really sporty, and then you come to the rear end, which is really bended back as much as possible. One more thing, we have an aluminum rear clap, and there's a reason, and we'll show you later. What's important as well is that we have this kind of dramatic design, this dramatic shape. You never would have got that from the A4 sedan. That's the reason why we had to go on the coupe. And now, I want to point one thing out, which is really important. And this is the favorite, why I would like to buy this car and drive this car. Very wanted. It's the best combination between sportiness, good design, coupe feeling, and functionality. And now, I got the key. I want to show you something. I open the car, and I want to sit inside. And I want to see if I really got space. It's a little bit harder than on a sedan, but it's not bad. So I go inside. Fantastic interior. You have to take a look at this interior. It's fantastic. So you can sit really quite well, proper, in a coupe. And now the favorite thing comes. Why I, as a father of kids, would also like to buy this car. Because we have this one. And this is really what makes the big difference between a sedan, which has a normal trunk. This is a big boot. You have a lot of loading space. If I would fold down the seats, I could sleep in the car. Show must go on. It would be like this. And it's moving automatically. And we integrated this trunk really nicely in the shape of the car. You even wouldn't realize that it's working like a big trunk. And inside there's a big third braking light, which is a signature for the Sportbacks as well. I would say, if you see this car, you would expect that you have a lot of daily use because you have a really elegant car, sporty car. For me, it's a win-win. I would buy this car, and I got the key. You will get the key tomorrow, and you will have the chance to drive the car, to explore the car, and I look forward to see the car on the street because I love it. Thank you very much. And I would like Barry to come back on the stage again and enjoy the evening, enjoy the car, enjoy the show. Thank you very much.
So before we eat, are there any questions that you may have for either one of us?
No, I heard it's identical almost to the A4 in terms of its dimensions. Is that true? But 1.6 inches lower.
Good point. The wheelbase is the same.
Yep.
The roof is way lower. I explained it before, because of the frameless doors coming from the coupe. And for sure here it's also a little bit lower than a sedan. And the rear end, this part is also overtaken from the coupe. And I think it's a few mil shorter than a sedan.
And the track is wider from the A5 from the A4. So you notice, for example, easy way, 19-inch wheels on A5 S5 are 255 width, 19-inch on A4 S4 is 245 width. So there is the overall body itself, but the track is wider with the A5.
What's the delivery charge on the present?
$975, I believe. And the gentleman next to you, you had a question as well, yeah?
Yeah, so this is this ultimate expression of practicality, style, sportiness. why continue doing A4? Just
So,
Your answer or my answer?
Yeah.
Traditional sedan.
So I think there's a couple ways to look at it, right? The first one is, of course, there is a significant price premium going from, based on a coupe, right? So it's a few $1,000s. The other thing is there still is a traditional market in the business for three-box sedan. So one of the things we found when we were looking at future vehicles is whether or not we should just do one or both. And in fact, you'll find that actual customers based on focus groups actually split. There's some that prefer a traditional sedan very strongly, and others that are actually open to the additional functionality of the Sportback. So from our perspective, it was important both from a price and from a broad customer appeal to have both.
So you didn't see like A6 sales start to go down as A7 was introduced, it was just an additive?
No, and in fact, A6 sales also increased when we brought in A7. I think it gave additional awareness to our overall C segment portfolio, but no, and of course, I think with this one as well, for example, on A4, we have the Ultra model, so 190 horsepower with front-wheel drive, S-tronic. That's not available on the A5 Sportback.
On that same score, most sales of traditional sedans flat to dropping dramatically in some cases. Does that come into play? It's like, let's give people body styles to kind of keep people in the people who don't want to cross over, but they're not wanting traditional sedan. You're finding kind of new options for the people who are moving that way.
Precisely. So I think what you touched on is a key point here as well. We're looking at a significant SUV migration going away. There are still a significant amount of population that don't need, have no interest in the design of an SUV. And I think what we're trying to find are new options that sort of get us closer to that level of functionality while still maintaining the car design that they're used to, that they're looking for, that they're shopping for.
Why didn't you go with the Ultra Quattro system like you have in the Q5? The decouplable, you know, or it decouples and it's front-wheel drive, but then can go all-wheel drive.
So I think that's just a matter of development timing with the car, but the 252 horse with this, it's consistent. We mentioned before, A4 has the self-locking center differential. This is the wheelbase from the A4. So from a drivetrain perspective, that was already created. That was already in there.
With the rear sport diff, what's the max torque you would send to that?
So the sport rear differential doesn't extract more torque from the center diff. It shuffles what is being proportioned to it. But as far as we'll have to get the specifics amount, but it is available to shunt quite a bit to the outside. I'll get you the specific percentage after I do. Anything else? No, very good. Yeah.
So it seems like the design started with A5 coupe and working back towards something elegant with practicality. The actual platform work started with A4 and worked up. So what specific hard points are changed A4 to A5 Sportback? If everything forward to the A pillar is shared, as it would be between A5 and A4 anyway, but like, was there any significant work done to the C pillar, for example, or anything required stiffness-wise, or was it just as simple as just putting a new cap on from basically the firewall back?
So we have two moments. We have a technical point, which is the structure underneath is actually a 4 sedan wheelbase, but wider track. Yeah, because the coupe also comes with a wider track.
So is the wider track accomplished through suspension mounting points, or just the suspension itself is wider, or the wheel?
I think it's about the wheels.
Wheels
Yeah,
also.
I think it's about the. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this is tradition because a coupe normally it's much wider track. Most important is what I hopefully worked out is the thing that you go to frameless doors, because otherwise will happen what I showed is the picture. The roof would be here, and from there on, I could get a fast seat post, but then my trunklet would be high like this. So I don't have a coupe anymore, then I have a lift back or fastback or whatever. yeah, or Ford Focus, something like that, or Ford Fusion. And this is the job what we did to get the best out of this package. So that's the reason why we started with the Coupe extending. But for sure, from there on, everything changed design-wise. Even we had to integrate the door handle. It's not there in the A5 Coupe, and we had to deal with this character line in a different way. And the biggest shock was actually to get this lower part as a COP from the coupe on a longer car with a way longer seat post and a quite short trunk. That's the reason why we moved it back as much as possible. And because we have aluminium, it also was a different story. And finally, we also extended the whole, let's say, window graphic to the Sportback signature. This kink here, it is purely Sportback. So actually there's a lot of change, but the basic design theme of the character of the car is coming from the coupe.
Well, where does curb weight fall between A4 sedan, this Sportback, and a coupe, and the A5?
What was the first one?
The weight,
The
weight between A4 sedan, this, and the coupe. Which is there?
From what I remember, the Sportback is the heaviest of the three, if only slightly, because of the change that Frank mentioned, the aluminum. I'll have to look at it. It's very minuscule, though, going from coupe to Sportback.
We'll get to the numbers.
Oh, and last one, sorry. You mentioned competitors. I mean, BMW has the 4 Series, and keep it on, it's hard to keep them all straight, the 4 Series Grand Coupe. Is there another, I mean, Mercedes doesn't have a box.
Correct. They don't have a traditional, they wouldn't have the CLC if they made such a
So there's
thing,
really
right?
only 4 Series
But the
Grand Coupe.
competition is, you fish in that pond, but also the traditional sedan. So if you think about B segment as a whole, you have, generally speaking, very high lease penetration. You have, meaning a lot of customers are coming back on lease. They want to, back to your earlier point, they're looking for something different to keep them in, keep them from moving to SUV. Maybe there's, there's 3 GT, heaven help us, there's 4 Grand Coupe. And of course the mix between the wagons as well as the sedans. So this really allows a customer that's sort of been through all of them to have something new.
At that point, I want to point out something. This is the second version of an B Sportback. You got the B8 Sportback, but I think it never came to the States. It wasn't in the States. Yeah. So we had that one, which was a lucky incident. Yeah. And finally, BMW didn't have anything in this class. Yeah. So they followed and they created the 4 Series version.
You okay?
I'm okay.
All right, and then last question over here.
Just like a nerdy question about mirrors. When they moved, did it affect the noise inside the cabin or possibly impact fuel economy?
How about the mirrors? We have the mirrors.
Yeah, because you moved them from the pillar to the shoulder as a foot.
Sure.
Actually, noise-wise, this is an advantage because air can go through. Normally, if you have a connection to the car, you will hear it. But it's a good point. We did a lot of detailed stuff. And if you take a look, closer look, normally you have some rivers and ribs and this and that. It's just really to reduce the noise and improve the aerodynamics. Because aerodynamics is also this car big point.
Yeah. So I think when you take a look at even, you'll notice from sitting inside the driver, you have a special ribbon here, also underneath different rain channels as well. The car is very quiet, even without having the framer on the windows. The car is extremely quiet, and of course, it's based on a good platform as well, which helps.
I just want to tell one more thing. We will be around tonight and also tomorrow. If you still have questions or you have want to talk about design check, whatever. So we are here, no problem. Come to us whenever you want. And if there are no more, like to ask Amelia to enter the stage because she will tell you. Oh, yes.
I'll take
This
the
is the
key
key.
too.
I
No,
keep,
take
no,
both.
I
I'll
keep the
take
key.
both. Yeah.
So because she will tell you